You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello and welcome to my first attempt at keeping a kind of audio diary podcast thing going. So my name is Richard A. Boxshall. I have been writing regularly since 2018, but thanks to some difficult family circumstances in the last couple of years, I've got out of the habit and have been struggling to get back into it, really. So I have completed one book. It's called The English Hikikomori. It's a story about male mental health. It's about a character who basically is working up to suicide, and I won't say whether they succeed or not, but the whole story is all about their mental health and how they view the world, and the lengths they go to convince people they're all right, so nobody's going to work out ultimately what they're planning. I'm very proud of it. It isn't an easy read. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it's quite a difficult read. I've had quite a few friends and family read it, and the general feedback is that men find it very hard going and often don't finish it, and female readers like it, enjoy it and like it, and think it's worth reading. So that's interesting. So where I am with that is I actually finished writing and editing it a couple of years ago, and typical me, I haven't bothered to do anything about it, send it off, try and get an agent or anything like that. So part of what I'm intending to do in this podcast is to chart my attempts to get it in front of an agent and get it looked at. So that's the first project, and it's called The English Hikikomori. The second project I've written is called Still Life. Again, I'm very proud of this. It needs one final draft based on a few bits of feedback I got from some beta readers, but I need to settle down and actually do that editing, because if I'm honest, it's not a big job. Probably 2 or 3 days at the most would see that completely signed off, and then that's a second completed project that I could consider doing something with. So the premise is it's about an immortal artist who can trap people in paintings, and it's kind of about how he's brought down and stopped. The guy's got enormous mental powers. He can make people do things he wants them to do. He can make people see things he wants them to see, and there is an established group of people who have similar abilities. I don't want to call it magic, although that's what it is basically, but I tend to call them abilities rather than powers or whatever. But yeah, there's a group of people who monitor and track people who have abilities such as this, and they have the ability to effectively kill that ability in someone. They don't kill the person, by the way, but they have the ability to quash abilities in people if they think they're the kind of person that might misuse them. This is coming from my bad guy, the painter, the artist, Max Sosi, who basically killed an awful lot of people, and they believed, this society called the Sutherland Institute, believed that they managed to kill him in 1897. Unfortunately, he knew what they were planning, he was forewarned, and so he was able to put into their minds that they did indeed execute him, though in fact they didn't, and he's kind of gone off the beaten track, hidden for about 100 years, and has now made the mistake of getting noticed again, and he gets noticed by my lead character, who is it's almost a bit like the Tomorrow People, she's newly breaking out. She's new to have these abilities, and so during the course of the story she discovers she has certain abilities. She can see into people's thoughts, she can communicate telepathically. She does have other abilities, but those are the main ones, and she first discovers this at the start of the story. So as well as Max Sosi, this nutty bad guy, taking an interest in her, she's also approached by the Sutherland Institute And basically it's about how they deal with Max Sosi when they discover that he didn't get executed in 1897. I love the characters in the book. I'm really proud of it. So much, I enjoyed writing for them so much that I am planning more stories with those characters. So the book is called Still Life. I anticipate it being part of a trilogy, and the reason for that is I have another big story to tell that's too big to tell in one book, so it's going to be told over two, and the sequels, if I get round to writing them, are going to be called, first one's going to be called Self-Portrait, and the second one is going to be called Blank Canvas. I'm very pleased with the titles because they're very relevant to what happens in the story. I have Self-Portrait it's written out in detail. I have a detailed chapter breakdown as to what happens, and then I have broader information about Blank Canvas, but I kind of know the beats of the story and where it has to start and where it has to end. Yeah, so that's that. So those are sort of finished. As I say, I do need a couple more days on Still Life, but other than that, it's done. What else? Then the book I'm currently working on, I actually started in 2019. It's called, well, it's got several titles. I'm not really happy with any of them. One title is Empress of the Trees. Another title is Wood Wide Web. Another story I'm considering is After the... story title I'm considering is After the Fall. Anyway, it's about... Well, it started from when I listened to a programme on Radio 4, which is, if you're listening outside the UK, that's a BBC mainly spoken word network. And it was all about trees and how, well, there's various aspects of trees in the programme, but one of the things they talked about is the fact that trees are able to, in a rudimentary way, communicate with each other via a fungal network called mycelia, I believe. And so this story is taking that to its kind of illogical extreme. What if every tree on the planet can see what we've done to the planet? What if they're not very happy with us? And what if they can find a way to give us an ultimatum which goes something along these lines: sort your shit out, humanity, because if you don't, we're going to stop breathing for 2 years. We'll survive, you won't. And basically, yes, it's a story, it's basically about, I hesitate to use the word Armageddon because there are some survivors. It's certainly not apocalyptic because there are, again, a few survivors. You could call it post-apocalyptic, but that's an oxymoron because apocalypse means the end of everything, so you can't have anything after that. But anyway, it's all about the trees deliberately create, over centuries, they form a plan to communicate with humans. Excuse me. They create ambassadors. My main character is Veronica Francesca, what's her surname? I can't remember her surname, that's bad, isn't it? Veronica Francesca, she's adopted by a family, basically, because she's a foundling. And I can't remember her parents' surname, but she ends up going by the name Veronica Arden when she becomes the ambassador to Yggdrasil, the Empress of the Trees. And it's all about how, basically, the trees create this person. They shape her to being the person that they need to communicate their message to the various governments around the world. So each country or region has their own ambassador for the trees, or ambassador from the trees. In this country we actually have, or in the United Kingdom we have 3. We have Veronica Arden, who is the English ambassador. We have Mackenzie, and I can't remember his surname either, who is the Scottish ambassador. And there's a girl in Wales as well, but she's not the main focus of this particular story. But yes, so Veronica, I don't like the name because it's shortened to Ronnie, and I don't like calling her Ronnie, so I'm thinking of changing her name to Frankie, which is apparently another shortening of Veronica. Frankie, yes, is a shortening of Veronica, according to the internet, although I have tried to do some research into the etymology of why this is so and can't quite come up with anything. So I'm going to change her name to Veronica, and her middle name is Francesca, which will get shortened to Frankie because I think Frankie is a better name for her than Ronnie. Anyway, irrelevant to all that, it's the story of her, how she's created, her early life, and then obviously how her life changes when she discovers that she's there to be an ambassador for a tree. It's about her delivering the message to government. It's about governments initially being sceptical, but eventually when proof is given that she's telling the truth. It's about how the government deals with it, how it tries to put ecological measures in place, but about how they're so harsh that there's a snap election and eventually a left-wing nut job ends up as Prime Minister, somebody who's got no governmental experience at all. This pattern is broadly repeated around the world, so the trees can basically see that they're not the deadlines for the things that the humans have to do to reduce pollution into the atmosphere. They can see that it's not going to that these targets are not going to be met, and ultimately, and I haven't quite written this bit yet, but ultimately decide that humans are not going to do the things they need to do, and they kind of rule summarily against us and decide to wipe out everybody but the designated survivors. I'm not going to go into details of how the designated survivors are chosen. The ambassadors and other people are designated survivors. So I've written about 200,000 words of that book. It's much longer than my other two. The other two average out at approximately 120,000 words each, I think. This one is 200,000 words. It's 32 chapters, and I've got another 7 chapters to write. So it's going to be approximately 250,000 words in its first draft. Where am I today, you ask? Well, I'm actually on chapter 20. So I have 2 models of writing that I like to do. The initial one was I would just write something in its entirety, first draft. But the thing is, I write, it's not quite stream of consciousness, it's not that random, but I don't write and worry about form, repetition, spelling, particularly punctuation. I just write, and then in draft 2, I get it into some kind of readable format. I mean, I'm not saying it's not readable beforehand, but I don't worry about that when I write it. But what I found is, I love doing draft 1, but I hate doing draft 2 because it's effectively just a read-through, tidy up, and I don't enjoy doing it. So what I've decided to do is try a different writing model from this point, which is where I will write a chapter and then edit a chapter. Now, because I am 31 full chapters into writing Empress of the Trees, Wood Wide Web, The Final Fall, or whatever it's called, I've decided, because obviously I haven't written it properly for years. I stopped writing it in 2020 because of the pandemic. It was about the stories about the end of the world, and it, for a brief time, felt like that was something that was possible and was going to happen. So I didn't finish it. I stopped writing it in 2020, and I've only occasionally been back to it. Probably seriously from last year when I started editing these chapters. So I'm currently editing chapter 20 out of the 31 complete chapters that I have written. When I get to the end of chapter 31, I will then finish writing chapter 32, which is half written, and then I'll go into the write and edit model. So that's what I'm working towards. Today is the 22nd of March, 2024. I have already done my writing for today, so I've done the first read-through of chapter 20. I often do them as a Twitch stream, so if you go to the link tree that I mentioned in the end credits, you will see that one of the options is it is a link tree that gives you links to all of my social media. This includes God, I'm waffling now. This includes my Twitch stream, and I do try and stream as often as possible. I haven't recently, I'm out of the habit, but I'm trying to get back into it. So today I have already done a live Twitch stream where I do my first read-through of chapter 20. There is a Discord server that is always live whilst that is going on, with the microphone turned up. So if anybody wants to come in and have an actual natter with me, nobody has yet because I don't really push it, to be honest. But if anybody would like to come in and have an actual audio conversation with me, they can join the Discord server, join the live audio, and just literally have a natter. So that's all I'm going to say today. The other thing to let you know is I am in... Actually, no, that will give me something to talk about tomorrow. So thank you for listening. That's my first sort of update, and I will let you know how things go. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my Linktree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.